are live. Heyo, welcome to the stream, everybody. Whoever happens to be joining on right now. Looking forward to getting into some more Zelda. Well, in our case, The Legend of Coop, InDev. So I'm hoping you're looking forward to that. But also, if you had seen on the Twitch schedule, I did change it around. We're only going to be doing this for about an hour. Then we're going to be playing, just whatever other game. I was going to say, I posted a poll to the Reddit. Let me double check. I don't think... And I posted this a little late, so pardon me for not giving a whole lot of ample time. But I did post a poll asking what the community would possibly be interested in me playing this evening, alongside the InDev. Okay, I don't have any votes, so I already know what I'm probably going to do. I'm going to play myself some old school RuneScape. Just because I've been craving playing that. Plus, I think, what is it, the Deadman mode? I think the new round of Deadman mode, I think just dropped today? Did it drop today or yesterday? It dropped recently. It's a game mode within the game where it's a sort of like you have a one-off character and you see how far you can get. Which is interesting, but I am not devoted into the ways of that. But I'm thinking they just did another one. Or are doing another one, rather. Let's see, Deadman Reborn. Is that happening now? Maybe? Oh yeah, August 25th. Yep. I guess that just dropped today. So that's pretty cute. I will not be participating. I do not have the time to devote to something like that. Sadly, but it's true. I have my main account to consider. Also, what I'm going to be doing with that later, I actually got a Jad task. So I'm going to be taking on the fight caves, which would be pretty cool. But getting on into the InDev, we're going to go ahead and transition on over. Oh no, it's not there. It's because I pushed the wrong thing. We are here. I was going to say, Mitchell has gotten me into watching, what is it, My Hero Academia? Yeah, so it's like, I am here. So it's kind of like, I don't know, that's been an interesting watch. I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I have been. That being said, it's different enough. I was expecting it to be a bit more cliche, but it's different enough to keep me interested, which is certainly a good thing. That being said, getting on into the dev here. So last time we roughed in the 4 different regions, which, are pretty basic. We haven't done a whole lot of edits, but this time we're going to focus on doing one region at a time, based on what we did before. That being said, the goal today is to finish out the forest region, or at least finish the roughing out for the forest region, add some more details and things like that. So that's the goal for today, and then maybe get started on the second dungeon, the second forest dungeon. That's currently my goal for today, is to go ahead and do those. I have a feeling we'll probably get through the development of the forest here, and then maybe get a map and stuff set up for this, but we won't really get into developing that too much, given, we're not going to spend too much time with this. Now, I've been wanting to spend some time just to do my own personal development on all this, but I just have not taken the time to do so, / haven't had the time to do so. But anyway, getting on into it. So, more or less the forest region, I want to keep fairly open. Like, I want this to be fairly open exploration, without too much stuff to get up in the way. That being said, we can go ahead and at least make it a little bit more challenging for the player, to be able to navigate. We can throw some random trees around here and there. But in terms of this area in general, it's definitely going to be the more open of the areas compared to the rest. This area is going to favor more, I suppose, I don't want to say tactical placement, but sort of positioning yourself such that, you can deal with the enemies that are on each screen. Before we do that, though, I want to finish. So I started this. So we have this here. This is our maze. You know, sort of Lost Wood style. You know, you have to go a certain pattern in order to progress further north. If you go south, you exit back to, you know, open territory here. So you progress here, continue north. We'll have some stuff here. But then the second forest dungeon is going to be here. So we can go ahead and add some details here just to complete out this little bit. What do we want to do as far as design wise? We can keep it, we'll keep it symmetrical here. That's not what I meant. That's what I meant. So go ahead and boop boop. Oh, look at that little friend. It's the forest cave eye friend. That's what they call them. Yeah, that's just what they call them. I don't know. Somebody called them that. Cave walk down. We'll have both of those be set to A because they'll go to the same spot. I don't know if that'll throw off our exit value any. Our exit value should be the same though. Like when you go to leave the dungeon. Or when you complete the dungeon and then get kicked out of the dungeon. Such is the fate of poor little Coop. He doesn't get to stay in the dungeon too long. But yeah, we're just gonna make this nice and formal as far as the approach. As you make your way towards Forest de la Fortress over here. Add some more of these. There we go, and there we go. Okay, that's not the button I wanted. This is the button I wanted. There we go. Okay, so that's a pretty nice little lead up as you're progressing towards this dungeon. Do we want to add anything else decorative here? Maybe we want to foreshadow some of the encounters you might come across. Because I'm thinking of throwing several of these in here. The, what are they? The, Gorias? Are they? No. They're not just called Gomas, are they? No. They are just called Goma. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Gomas. Goria. Now, Gorias are the boomerang guys. I don't know what I'm thinking. Yeah, we'll throw a couple of these in here just as like statues almost. Just to give the impression of, or just to sort of show, that's definitely not what I wanted. Yips. Mistakes have been made. I don't think there's a 1x3. There's not. That's unfortunate. So we'll just have to place these ourselves. We'll line it up, so 1 to 1, there we go. There we go, and there we go. Maybe we want to do, we can do some more of those too. I actually like that look. Yeah, these are going to be menacing little statue-mans. Just standing here. Being all mean and threatful to the player as they approach. So that looks good. Because, yeah, we are going to be utilizing those in this dungeon in particular. So, do we want to add like a path. We want to add a path leading up to it. So what we can do to signify that it's a path, we can just toss down. Maybe this would look better as a path. I don't know if I want it quite that. This is what we can do. There we go. That looks better. So we'll just toss these on down. We'll toss these on down, and then we can give a little bit of a distinction here. Have a couple of little difference bits as we progress up the trail here, just to give it a little bit of a distinct look as we're approaching the fortress. Okay, so that is good there. Do we want to be mean? I think we do. Alright, so we're going we're going to be a little mean here, and I think we're going to put a mimic. We're going to put a mimic like up and like to the back here. We're going to put a mimic there. Oh, actually, the color scheme's different. So what we'll actually need to do before we do that, we want to go combo page. We want to create a new one. Advanced paste. Yeah, we want to do. Nah, we'll modify all that ourselves. It acts a little funny when you try to copy and paste some of the. Oh, no, what to copy? Oh no, I see. No, I need to copy all of it. There we go. Which also means this should be a, what do you call them here? Okay, but instead of that, we actually don't need you. We need this. So we'll select that. That's going to make me go to the actual C set in order to modify that. Oh, okay, we can do that. Yeah, so it's still an Armos flag. Now we want to go to tile page. So now we can edit this tile, because we need to edit this tile to where it matches our background. One other way we could do this is by having layers, by creating a layered format. But I don't want to mess with layers. Layers are more complicated than they need to be fair. So it's kind of like I don't want to deal with layers. Like, quite frankly, I just don't want to deal with layers. So I'm not going to deal with layers, more or less. Let's see. And one thing I always forget. My brain always works on one track. Like, theoretically, all I would need to do is just, like, I can have literally different sections of scroll here. But my brain does not allow me to use it because brain acts funny sometimes. Such as it be. We'll put some grass. Give the player a little bit of a a regen, if you will. That's gonna look too much like that though. How about this? We don't need to give the player that much additional health and stuff. We don't want them to heal up too much. We can just do this. And maybe we can do a little bit more here. The thing with the forest, we need to keep the forest relatively, like, the forest area needs to be busy just because of how open it is going to end up being. Because, you don't want the player just to have to run through the same boring looking environment over and over. So instead of that, we add a little bit of flourish here and there, which is what more or less we're doing now. Let's see. What do we want to have leading up through the trail here? We have two more lead ups out of the woods that need to be slightly more developed compared to the rest of the forest. So what we could theoretically do, I don't know, what do I want to do? That's the problem. I get into these development loops where my brain wants to do something, but then I conflict with myself in regards to like what I actually try to come up with. So it's kind of like, kind of like that. Oh, what's we got going on? Oh, I'm getting a text. Duty calls and I respond. There we go. And work is done for today. Or at least I hope so. Until I get a response on what I just sent. We can have some more grass, sort of in plotches. How about that? We can just have... We don't need to overcomplicate things. Because we already have these little statue bits here. So I don't want to add too much to where it's like unnecessarily dense with stuff. Oh no. Give me that. Okay, so that's that, and that's that. Good, good, good. We will continue to do that. Oh, work. Yep, all is well. Okay. Yawn, yawn. Goodness. Okay, so what do you call them? Oh, I forgot to turn our music on. Hold up. Yeah, the background music that we've been listening to in the background while we've been doing this stuff. Give me uno momento and I shall get us some music. What we got? What we got? I believe this is what we've been listening to. There we go. Yeah, that's good. Go ahead and turn this down so we don't blow up the microphone. Yeah, there we go. Cool, cool. Let's see, we'll go ahead. Back that up just a little bit. Okay, cool, cool. Oh, as you can tell, I'm a bit more relaxed today than what I have been in regards to this. Usually I've just been humped over my computer over here, but today I'm just taking it nice and relaxed because I feel like I take developing this too seriously and then I end up just not getting very much done, which is unfortunate but true, because that usually ends up what happens. What do we want to add here? We can add some decorative trees. Decorative. Ooh, no. Now we want spiky trees. This is Dungeon Land. Land of the Doomy Death. This is where we add the spiky trees to signify Doomy Death. Okay, so we get this, we get this, we get this. Boom, boom, boom. You know what? Even make it more spiky Doomy Death. Add some spiky... No. We want to add spiky. And pretty much it. Yeah, I was gonna say that error with the music loop. It still functions perfectly fine, but for some reason the actual application stops responding. So it still works, and I can visibly see that it's still working, but for whatever reason the playback just stops responding. So that's a bit odd. It's a wee bit odd to say the least. Okay, so this here's a pretty decent area already. I'm going to add a little bit of extra touch to it by throwing in some spiky trees. Because who would not want to add spiky trees? Am I right? Okay. Okay, so that's a pretty decent lead up. So I'm pretty happy with that. We've got a mimic up there just for the sake of having a mimic for no reason. Because I like throwing mimics where they shouldn't be. Got nice normal walk up area, and then the path continues. Nice. Okay, so that looks good. Coming down to here, we have, this is the opening to where the path begins. Here, we're actually going to have a guy that'll give us a hint, but a very roundabout hint that isn't all that helpful. the hint is more or less going to be the equivalent of him just rambling on about nothing. But within the nothingness, there's going to actually be useful hints. So it's basically going to be a riddle where it's like, boo, 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 I left something here, and just because I left it here doesn't make it right or something. You know what I mean? So like within the actual context of the rambling on about nothing, there's actually going to be the hints of like, oh, you need to go east, west, east, north. So, you know, right, left, right, up, more or less. So, or you know what I mean, yeah. Right, left, right, up, yeah. So, yeah, there's going to be just like some crazy dude rambling on in a tree stump here. So, lost my tree stump. Lost the tree stump. Here we go. Alright. We want this one. Ooh, spooky. Okay. Boom, 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 boom. We want this and this. Ooh, give me that, give me that. And boom. Similarly, we need to throw in our walk down A. Go ahead and preemptively put our... Oops! Not what I wanted. Go ahead and preemptively put our warp A. This will be our exit point. So we'll have our warp A there. And this area is now set. So, crazy dude in the tree, it's going to tell you the hint about this is now prepped and ready. That being said, we want to give this guy's area a little bit more flourish. You know, can't make it just a boring little treeman, am I right? Boring little treeman, Nobody wants that. Yeah, nobody wants that ever. Ever. I'm telling you. Also, we want to actually bar the entrance to this. So the thing that you're going to have to do these, you need to have the flame, which theoretically you should get if you actually know how to open boxes in the first dungeon, which you should know how to do. But if somehow you missed literally the first box in the exact first room of the dungeon, of the first dungeon, you somehow missed that, you wouldn't have the flame, which means you actually could not progress past this point yet until you get the flame somewhere else, which is a bit more tedious. And yeah, just open boxes, but always check to see if they're mimics first. But we do need to go ahead. Tools, combo flags. We want burn trigger. Burn trigger any. Boop, 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 boop. Actually, I think for this is actually inherently, you can slash this with a sword, I think. That's not what I wanted. Tile page, combo location. Nah. Yeah, I think you can slash these with... I think you can slash those with a sword, though. So what we can do instead, we can have a normal bush that would otherwise be unburnable, and then make it burnable, for the sake of progression. So yeah, we already have our burn flags, burn any. Yep, those are in place. Tag 6. What do we have as tag 6? Bomb trigger. Oh, do those inherently have a bomb trigger? Is that just a glitch? Huh. That's a bit odd. But, you know what? For the sake of this, I might allow that. I'll allow it. Yeah, because effectively that will give you both a... burn, we want burn trigger. We want burn trigger to burn from that to being this. And we'll want to set that for each of the reoccurring values. That way, no matter what type of fire you use, you are effectively still burning it one and the same. So if you only did one, then it would go to a black hole, and you don't want that. So this is oddly enough also a bomb trigger tree. I don't recall that being part of the subset, but such as it is, I'll actually allow that. If they feel like using a bomb instead, go for it. Yeah, it's odd that it's a bomb trigger as well. Bomb trigger, huh? So that particular tree within the default tile set actually has the bomb trigger inherent. So okay, wakes for me. Yeah, because yeah, flag bomb trigger any. Okay, wakes for me. I mean, for that matter, I don't want that to be the case, really. I really don't want that to be the case. So I'm gonna remove the bomb trigger from that. And I'll do it the same. I'll do the same for that. If I want to have one that has a bomb trigger, sure, but for how I want to use it, I don't want it to be a bomb trigger. Just a burn trigger, which now should be the case. So once you burn these, it will transition you to secret combo, just flat ground. Which then, burning that, progress up, and now you're in your maze. Nice. Alright, continuing on. We could add a couple of dead trees around this area if we really wanted. Yeah, why don't we do that? We can add some dead trees. Wouldn't it make sense for one hollowed out tree to just exist by itself in this otherwise empty plane here? That is the lead up to the main bit there. So yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll toss that there. And for the sake of it, why don't we confuse the player a little bit and give them something to waste their time on, and have several more of these burnable bushes just scattering the area. Because then the player will feel inclined, oh, I need to burn all of them. Which it take time unless they have the advanced flame, which at this point they likely would not have gotten unless they've gone north before they went here. If they went to the town of Yefdu, they will be able to purchase the advanced flame at Yefdu, which they currently, in theory, wouldn't have gotten to yet. If they progress sort of in the intended route, question mark. Because in theory, because what we currently have, if we go back to, what do you call them here? We go back down to the town of Bomb. There's going to be a guy in one of these buildings that will direct the player to travel north to the town of Yefdu in order to get stocked up before their adventures. That being said, that is optional, and also, in theory, the player might just like completely miss where the town of Yefdu is, because they'll come here and then they'll be like, oh, okay, I'm just going to travel this way for some reason, and it's like, oh, cool stuff. So they might come across the first forest dungeon before they even go to the town where they're supposed to get restocked and supplied at, which, you know, yeah, more or less. Because in theory, so if the player did travel, if they did travel the intended route, which is head north, because that's where more or less they're going to, the other guy in town. The other guy in town is going to say travel north to find the town of Yefdu. So in theory, if the player does travel north, they'll encounter, you know, more or less the town of Yefdu. They'll continue north, and then that's where to transition to the town. That being said, what we can go ahead and do, we want to go ahead and set up our exit point. So we're going to go ahead and do that before we continue on. So that's also going to determine some of our design work here as we continue on. So this is that. We are going to set this screen up as a side warp, because this side warp is going to act to take us to, and I'll correct all this later. A lot of the more tedious stuff, like reassigning these, I'll do myself later. just because it takes a bit to try to like find what reference you're looking at. But this side warp will take you to the town. So in theory, the player will have progressed basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tiles to the north, just dead north, and they will be in the town. So it's certainly the intended route to take naturally. That being said, players do like to be adventurous from time to time, so they might not want to progress just due north. And that is up to them, and if they do so, then that's good. They'll be able to get some items that they otherwise would not have had that might come in handy later. But also, they'll miss out on potentially getting some money and stuff by exploring before they go to town, because the stuff in town is going to be pretty pricey, or at least in the main town. So in terms of the shops and how they're going to be implemented, the town of Yeftu will pretty much have a little bit of everything. That being said, it's very expensive compared to the individual towns that are in each of the regions. So each region has one town that sells certain items. And there's 4 regions, so there's 4 smaller towns in the game in total. Each one selling a certain makeup of items. That being said, you could find most of those same items in the town of Yeftu, but they're marked up severely. Like, I'm talking hundreds of rupees for an item that you might be able to pick up for a lot less if you were to actually manually travel to one of the smaller towns. And the travel between the towns will be made a lot easier, because there are going to be shortcuts that lead from one... there's going to be shortcuts that lead from one... from one region to the next. You'll be able to have shortcuts between those regions. That being said... the player just has to be able to unlock the shortcuts first, because they're not going to be able to use the shortcuts until they have a certain item, which is actually going to be something we might set up here in a little bit. We shall see. But right now, I'm just going to go ahead and do just a little bit of touch-up leading up to the town of Yeftu. Just some basic trees and such. And one thing I might actually do to sort of keep the player sort of on track, I might build a trail similar to what we did here. I'll build a trail similar to what we did there, that will take you due north, where the town of Yeftu will be. So that might also entice the player a little bit, to direct them more toward the path that they are meant to go. Although they're, again, not beholden to following the trail whatsoever. You know, and actually now in retrospect, I'm thinking of doing this trail differently. So right now we currently have, you know, what I would say a dirt trail. I'm picturing this trail to be actually more well-rounded out. So we can actually replace that with actual proper tiles. Like this. Well, that's very too similar. Oops. That being said, we can do this. Why don't we actually try this? That might look like an even better trail. Yeah, I like the looks of that. So let's do that instead. We'll continue. We'll build ourselves an actual proper trail for the dungeon that leads into the dungeon. So actually, I like the looks of that. That looks good. And then over here is where we're gonna have just our dirt trail, like we had before. Looking for my thing, looking for my thing. Where are the things? Where are the things? Here they are. We do not need any of this. Get out of here. Goodness. Nah, I'm pretty much just marking that as just a useless space. We aren't going to be using that for anything. Goodness. I'm over here humming, singing a little bit of Ocarina de la Time. I will say, Ocarina of Time is definitely one of the Zelda games that are, like, pretty top tier for me. Like, it's the one that I remember me and my grandfather playing the most. Just because, you know, we just played it just all the time. So there's definitely a nostalgia button there for me, but also looking back and seeing just how critical a game it was for the development of literally any game similar to it, sort of moving forward, you know what I mean? Like, it inspired, as far as, like, I mean, it's the game that did, like, lock-on mechanics right. It's the game that, you know, in a 3D space, it's like, it did so much right for basically being a almost first of its kind that, you know, there's a lot of respect for what it did. And, you know, in retrospect now, there's definitely things that they could have improved on. And even things that I feel like they should have improved on with the 3D remakes. Like the 3DS one, the remaster or whatever they called it. Like, I feel like there are things that they could have done to improve, but at the same time, to be able to recreate sort of the nostalgia that sort of drew you into the series to begin with. Like, I feel like that is, I don't know, like, I feel like that has value unto itself. You know, as to why, you know, it's such a necessary game, just to the industry, just as a whole, I would say. That being said, I will say it's not my favorite. It is not my favorite Zelda game. And you might be thinking, oh, Breath of the Wild is probably his favorite. No, Breath of the Wild was good. I will not deny that Breath of the Wild was good. It was a milestone in what, in sort of the development sort of mind that is Nintendo. Like, it was certainly a milestone for Nintendo to sort of go out of their way to build something like that. I mean, other games that were on Nintendo consoles that were similar to that, maybe, like, you had, like, I don't know, maybe Xenoblade. Like, you know, as far as, like, games like that on a Nintendo console. And for actual Nintendo themselves to make Breath of the Wild, you know what I mean? Like, you know, a proper full Zelda game that's in the style of, like, open world RPG like that. That was a big risk and something that they had not done similar at all to. So I'm glad that it turned out the way that it did. It's very good. But that being said, there are better games that fit that niche, like that market, you know, sort of the open world market like that. There's better games, and even then, Breath of the Wild could have done some things better. And I mean, not to be cliche, but the weapon and combat is pretty lackluster. You know, the weapon breaking mechanic, I'm not as oofed about that as some people, but at the same time, I get why people are angry about that. Like, it is kind of frustrating to basically be locked out from just doing combat however you want and at will, just for the fun of it, when you also are limited to how much combat you can literally physically do before your weapon breaks. So that is one frustrating thing about the combat that I would say is valid as far as an argument goes. Like, the weapon breaking mechanic, it's not the worst, but they could have improved it a lot, because it is kind of, it makes it to where you don't really want to do the combat. Like, doing combat is counterproductive for the case of playing Breath of the Wild. Like, you just don't want to do combat, and that's kind of unfortunate. Considering, like, the combat's not even bad. Like, I love the idea of the parry mechanic with the shield. I love being able to dodge attacks. Like, that's cool stuff. But the thing is, if you are having to basically worry that you just won't have a weapon by the time you're done, Like, or rather a weapon that's worth anything, you know? Like, a good weapon. If you're just not going to have a weapon, then there's no point to really risking combat at that point. It's kind of like, there's no need to do combat when you can just bypass the game by just not doing combat. Which is kind of sad because, like, the combat is fun. It's just what little amount of combat you really need to do. I mean, theoretically, you could probably, I mean, we've seen it before. I mean, people speed running and people literally just bypassing the game by just using the bare minimum and nothing else. And it's like, that's, it's cool that the game does have that level of, option as far as, like, I don't know, sort of avoiding combat as a means to survive, but at the same time, like, the game is made around the game is made in part around its combat mechanics. So, I don't know, they just didn't utilize what combat mechanics they had as effectively as maybe they could have. That's the one downside I will say to the combat that I wish they could have possibly improved. That being said, it's not the end of the world. Like, Breath of the Wild is still an awesome game. Me and my grandfather, we still 100%ed it, and it was amazing. That being said, again, in retrospect, once sort of the initial hype and sort of the initial playthrough is done, it gives you room to sort of think back and say, that wasn't as fun as it could have been. And that's kind of my take on Breath of the Wild. That being said, my favorite Zelda game, and this is where this discussion was leading to, my favorite Zelda game is actually Twilight Princess. I love the aesthetic and just the story. I love the feel of Twilight Princess. Twilight Princess was basically the creation of what sort of the mental mindset and everything of Ocarina was. It's like, it felt like the natural progression from Ocarina of Time, and even Majora's Mask. It felt like, okay, it's this, pretty serious this serious setting with, bad consequences if you don't do this thing right. It's like Ocarina of Time, you basically have, you've got to stop Ganondorf. You've got to stop Ganondorf. To then moving on, it's like, oh, this Twilight, you got to stop the Twilight. It's like both of those situations are like very consequential, which is something I really liked as far as the setting. And of course, Twilight Princess did take a sort of a darker tone, if you will, comparative to Ocarina. But even then, it was still lighthearted enough to know its own world building, if that makes sense. So you still have some pretty funny characters with some funny dialogue. Even the enemies that are meant to be taken more seriously are still kind of goofy at times. You take what's her name, the Ice Yeti lady. It's like, she's this like goofy kind of chill character. But then, like, you get to the boss encounter, and it's like, oh, that's actually kind of frightening. The way that you literally 360'd your head around or whatever. You know what I mean? Or 180'd your head around. And it's like, whoa, hold up. And it's like, it's like, that kind of stuff is cool. Because it's like, oh, this is going to be an easy fight. And it's like, oh, no, you're actually kind of scary. And, it's stuff like that makes games fun. It's just, you have, this world building component to it, and just how you utilize that, and keep the player on edge and sort of off their toes, while also, staying true to the theme that you're aiming for. Like, the Twilight Princess definitely went with the more, like, gritty, sort of, the gritty fantasy, compared to, like, Ocarina. Ocarina was definitely, like, lowish, like, to mid fantasy. I wouldn't say it's high fantasy. It's a fairly low fantasy setting, whereas Twilight Princess was, like, definitely more, like, I wouldn't say high fantasy, still like mid fantasy, but like gritty, like with a gritty realism touch to it. And I felt like that was really cool. Just because it's like, yes, this is what I wanted on another Ocarina of Time game to be. You know what I mean? You know, and that's not to say anything bad about like Wind Waker. Like I also loved Wind Waker, but the thing is, it didn't like get that. It didn't really get the itch that Twilight Princess did. You know what I mean? It's like Ocarina of Time has a particular feel, and I feel like Twilight Princess encapsulated that better than Wind Waker. Like the exploration factor, I will say, Wind Waker does extremely well, and actually better than Twilight Princess. But in terms of like the story and how the feel of the game and everything is, I tie Twilight Princess more closely with Ocarina compared to Wind Waker. And again, that's not to say Wind Waker wasn't bad. Like, it wasn't good. Like it was also amazing. But it definitely filled a different purpose, like, to me, as far as like the game itself goes. Comparatively. That being said, so we have our trail now. Let's go back over here. So we're going to kind of build backwards here. So we have this here. And this here is actually going to be a special little area with its own little side dungeon. Like a little tiny baby dungeon that has some items that you can get. So I'm going to go ahead and add. Gonna go ahead and add a thing over here. And we can add some more. And we can go ahead and add a little bit right here. Go ahead and grab a little faceman. Little faceman. Do. It's a little guy with a little face. Put him right there. Do. Okay. So we did that. Did that. That's a cave walk down. Perfect. That looks weird. Where's it gonna do? There we go. I like the looks of that better. The other one's more decorative or whatever, but I like the classic feel. Classic look. Okay, so we're gonna throw some more diesel treemans down here for the sake of treemans. Oh, speaking of trees, so I think we may have mentioned it in the our last stream, but I recently started another D&D group. Currently, the party composition is as follows: Mitchell, Foot Mitchell, you know, our Mitchell, currently playing a Warforged Ranger named Dent. Who does not remember his past except for the fact that he needs to kill monsters and protect civilization. So we currently have Dent, the Warforged Ranger. We have, and pretty much, I mean, everybody, you know, I know everybody that's in the group, and we're all friends, so, but, we also have Verdugo, the Dark Elf, Wizard. He's an interesting one. He speaks as though everything he is saying is absolute fact, even when it's obviously not. And it's great. Like I love that character, dude. Like Verdugo's great. But Verdugo, but yeah, he's a dark elf that basically says everything as though it's like absolute fact and it's true. So sorry, hiccups. Goodness. But what do you call them? So the other night, a monk, they encountered a monk, and it was night. You know, Verdugo, he actually, you know, he had already slept through the night, you know, because he only needs 4 hours of sleep. Well, meditation. You know, elves don't actually have to sleep in Dungeons and Dragons. That being said, so he actually, you know, was awake already, but he saw a monk, and, you know, this monk was looking for his clothes, which were in the building that they had occupied, because they had, you know, nighted down in an old ruin. But this monk was actually looking around for his clothes, which some of the other player characters had located and actually had folded before the night had started. That being said, the monk shows up and, basically says that he's there to get his clothes. And Verdugo hands him over. The monk asks, "Oh, did you fold these?" That's, more hospitality than I usually see around here. And Verdugo just straight up claims to have folded the clothes himself. And more or less threw the others under the bus. It was like such a great bit. And the funny thing is, Verdugo, or the person that was playing Verdugo, wasn't aware that Warforged, they don't necessarily stop being aware. They just enter a low power state. More or less like a recharge period almost. So, Dent was, aware of, the whole conversation. He was just aware that everybody else got thrown under the bus because Verdugo handed these clothes over to the monk. It was, such a great bit. But no, I'm really looking forward to playing with that group more. That was actually really fun, the other night. They basically got to the location where the old first dungeon is going to be located. So they were able to get there and kill off a couple of orcs that were stationed there. And now they're going to be descending down further into the mountain. Which I think will be pretty cool. Assuming the others also think it's pretty cool. One thing that they do need to figure out a bit better, that I was concerned about, they need to figure out how their party, is going to function together better. Because the thing is, and it wasn't the end of the world. It wasn't the end of the world, but, more or less, they ended up doing more stealth than maybe was necessary, and as a result, they ended up giving, they basically gave away their surprise, because they more or less relied on the fighter to try to make, they relied on the fighter to be able to actually successfully stealth, and while that did work, for a time, they ended up, failing a check, and then it's like, oops, there goes the clingy armor. You know what I mean? So, one thing that the party, as a group, needs to, figure out better is, party roles and how to properly strategize such that each person is able to better take advantage of, what makes their character unique. Because the fighter, while they are able to make stealth checks, and it was actually pretty cool, the ranger Dent. I actually forgot to mention the rest of them. I got too wrapped up in the Verdugo discussion. So, yeah, Dent the Ranger, the Warforged Ranger, Dark Elf Wizard named Verdugo, and then we have a Cleric, what are they called? The furry one. I don't know. I don't remember what it's called. Hold up. Yeah, hold on. But yeah, the furry one, the cat one. What's the cat race called? Tabaxi. I was thinking Khajiit, but I know that's Skyrim, and I know that's not right. Yeah, Tabaxi. We have a Tabaxi Cleric, which is actually a pretty interesting build. It's a Tabaxi Cleric that is part of the Twilight Domain. If those of you that know, the Twilight Domain is pretty OP, but I feel like it actually plays out pretty well. Oops. It plays out pretty well. So I will say, having a Tabaxi Cleric that is part of the Twilight Domain is actually pretty cool. Especially with how they're playing it. You usually picture the Twilight Domain ones being sort of frontliners with heavier stuff because, they get heavy armor. They get heavy armor and martial weapons. The Twilight Domain clerics do. That being said, he is actually treating it almost more like a Dex sort of class. Like, definitely playing more on the, like, shadowy sort of, you know, undertone, if you will, sort of the Twilight. So I think that that's actually pretty cool. It's definitely a unique take on the Twilight domain, and I can get behind that. Not actually, because that would make me a furry, but... but you know what I mean. But, what do you call them? But no, that's actually a cool character as well. I really like that character. And then, finally, last but not least, another friend of ours is playing a human fighter. You might think, oh, that's the most generic class you can ever do. But the thing is, it's great because this guy, he only plays human fighters. Every single campaign he's been in, he's been a human fighter. And I will say, he's actually pretty cool, like, the one that he's designed this time. You know, it's not just a dude in armor, it's, you know, he's basically playing a Norseman, you know, sort of, you know, like Viking-esque, if you will. And, what? Oh, yeah, and his name is, Iradmar. Iradmar, the, yeah. What's it called? I know that he actually gave himself a title. Hold up. What did he title himself? Iradmar, what we got? There's too many things. Oh, jeez. Forgot we posted on that. Goodness. Oh, this is way too much stuff. I probably missed it. There's too many memes. You ever get into like a group chat that has like 5 people in it and then just like you can't actually find meaningful discussion beyond like the memes? Like legit, it's just memes. Oh yeah, and the current ongoing joke with Dent's character is that he's his real purpose that he's trying to find. It turns out he's actually just like a fan fiction generator that generates like almost Sonic fanfiction level like nonsense. And yeah, that's pretty much the current development of our team. We've got the furry, we've got the human fighter, the most generic class. We've got Dark Elf Wizard that is basically going to throw the other players under the bus quite frequently. And we've got, what do you call them? The fanfiction generator. That's more or less our party comp now. Pretty well balanced, I'd say. Got a little bit of everything in that party. What else do we want to do? Do a little bit of this, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Maybe a little bit of this in there too. There we go. What else do we want? I feel like this is a little lackluster. Why don't we throw some extra little bits here and there just to throw the player off. This area can be a little bit more condensed, yeah, for the challenge of it. Yeah, for the challenge of it, we shall make it more difficult to navigate. This is going to be an optional dungeon up ahead that you're going to be able to unlock some new stuff from. So, we can make this a little bit funkier. Okay, so, nice. Okay, cool. So we're almost an hour into it. What do you call them? I'm feeling pretty good about this. I'm gonna keep working on this for a little bit longer. And then we can transition over to the next stream that we have planned, which I believe I'm going to do some RuneScape once I get it set up here. But I guess we'll see here in a little bit. A wee little bit it is. Just a wee little bit it is. Okay. Okay, so this is good, this is good. Nice, nice, nice. Okay, so this here is, what do you call them? This is the warp to the town of Yeftu. This is the warp to the town of Bomb. So we need 2 more warps. And these are going to be for our shortcuts between the regions. So we're going to have a shortcut over here. So let's go ahead and map that out. There we go. And okay, there we go. So we're gonna have another warp here. This is gonna be what I like to refer to as useless one. Okay. Oh, I know what you think. Okay. So continuing on, we want and okay. So this is that. This is that. We're gonna have this also be a side warp. So side warp, we want boop. Nice. So side warp has been established. We also need one more side warp that's going to take us out. One more side warp that's going to take us out into the other shortcut. So this shortcut will take us to the region that is the desert and the swamp. So this is the desert and swamp region warp. The shortcut. Then we'll have another shortcut that is going to take us to, what do you call them? Another shortcut that's going to take us to, it's going to take us to the water world, Waterland, the place where the water's at. Actually, I don't want that. I want this. You'll have to approach this shortcut from below. Yeah, I like the looks of that. So this will be useless. We'll have this act as a side warp. Nice. So side warp. This will take us to the place that's primarily water. This will be our oceanic region over here. So we'll travel south from here, end up being in a shortcut here. So, how do we prevent the player from preemptively accessing this shortcut, though? That's going to be the real problem, is how do we stop them from preemptively doing that? What we can do is do similar to what we did with this bush, but we are going to want to... Yeah, I'm going to have to do this instead. So, do something like we did similar to this bush, but signify it as something a little bit more unique, and we can do that by there we go. We do that. We'll just copy this. Oh, so that's how that works. It's just okay. Well, what we can do to signify that this tree is slightly different, we can replace that with a brown, and then replace some of this empty space with brown. Signify that it's slightly different. See what I'm saying here? Do 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 do. Ooh, do do, give me that. Do do do. Okay. But yeah, we can do something like that to give it some significant difference comparative to the other bush. Yips. Didn't mean the click. Got it. Single click. Yeah, we can do that. I feel like that will give it enough significantly different pattern to where we can signify it as a different type of burnable bush. One that relies on a different and more higher powerful magicka. Let's see. That is. Okay. Nice. So we'll select that. There we go. Yeah, look at that. That's definitely, that'll work. That'll work out well. Because now we have these bushes blocking our path to our sidewalk. So you have to get rid of those in order to progress. That being said, we want burn, but we do not want burn any. That, or we could use burn any, but we'd have to specify in the secret combo that, you know, we didn't want, or that would basically end up being the exact same thing if you use the wrong burn. So we want, though, specifically, burn trigger, dense fire. Boop, 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 boop. And you'll see what dense fire is here in a minute. It's basically a specific type of burn tag. However, it's also an item that I will be using as well as modifying. But for the sake of the combo, it's classified as a dense fire combo. Indeed. Indeed. Well, for that matter, why don't we have that end up being this instead? I feel like that would be a nice aesthetic touch. And we could do the same in here, actually. We'll do secret combos. We'll have just the stump be all that's left once you burn it. I feel like that'll look nice if you had the stump as the final burnable little bit there. Nice. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this. Okay, so that's good, that's good. Those look good too. Okay, then now we'll do similar over yonder way. Where's our warpy bit? Here's our warpy bit. So we'll have boop, 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 boop. And good. Have our burn combos, then fire, booyah. And should be good. Okay. So we made decent progress. We didn't quite get this finished within the hour. Granted, I was rambling on about random this, that, and the other. So it can only be so expected to be able to get the stuff done within the amount of time and whatnots and things. But I feel like that's pretty good progress. And I do plan on taking more time specifically, like this upcoming weekend, as well as just in general. I'm planning to take some more time in general to actually like work on this more in detail. So hopefully by the time we get back into working on this next week, hopefully I'll have most of this area already like cleaned up and finished out. Yeah, let's see. And we'll have that goal. We'll have that goal before next stream. And then next stream, then actually next stream, we'll have, yeah, so actually next stream we will have finish second forest dungeon. So that'll be the goal. It'll be my personal goal before next stream to have this forest region basically fleshed out completely. And then the goal for next stream will be finish and flesh out the second dungeon. I feel like that's achievable goals and goals that I will strive to actually reach. So, I guess we'll see. Guess we'll see how well that turns out, but I feel like I should be able to do at least that much with what time I'm able to devote to this. But I guess we shall see. That being said, I'm going to take a short intermission, and then we can transition into our next game, which is going to be basically just playing some old school RuneScape. Yeah, I got hyped about playing RuneScape again after our last InDev. Jack in the chat actually brought up, or rather, we were just discussing games in general, and we got on a rant about MMOs. And as a result, it's like, I'm actually kind of hyped. Kind of hyped to get into playing some more old school RuneScape. So yeah, gonna be taking on the fight caves. Coming for you, Jad. Coming over there. Gonna beat me up some Jad. But yeah, I'm gonna take a short intermission, and I shall see you all here in a little bit. Bye, and see you momentarily.